Chapter 2. The Colors of Chaos. The seventh-story drop was a screaming vortex of wind and rain. For a split second, freefall owned Alara, a terrifying void that threatened to swallow her whole. The pulsating crystal heart, the domain core, was a cold, heavy weight against her chest, its rhythm a frantic counterpoint to her own hammering pulse. The man with the hand of decay watched from above. He wouldn't need to touch her. Gravity would do his work for him. Not today. Panic was a paralyzing poison, but creation was the antidote. Alara wrenched her largest sketchbook from her satchel, the wind tearing at the pages. She clutched a thick ink pen, its nib slick with rain. There was no time for detail, no room for finesse. She needed something big, something strong, something born of shadow and storm. Her pen flew across the waterproof page, a frantic dance of black lines. She drew wings, vast and powerful, not of a bird but of something more mythic. A broad leonine body, a hawk's head, proud and sharp. A griffin. She poured her will into the sketch, a desperate, raw surge of power that left her feeling hollowed out. The ink on the page seemed to boil, drinking the darkness around her. The drawing ripped itself free from the sketchbook. Living ink and shadow coalesced beneath her, forming a massive, silent creature of the night. It caught her, not gently, but with the solid thud of a living thing. Its back was slick and cool, its form semi-corporeal, smelling of wet paper and ozone. It righted itself in the air, its immense wings beating against the gale, turning her deadly plummet into a controlled, breathtaking dive through the canyons of Veridia. She risked a glance upwards. The shattered window of the penthouse was just a glittering wound in the distant spire. There was no sign of the gray man. For a moment she allowed herself a sliver of hope. The griffin carried her down, its form already flickering, the effort of maintaining such a complex creation in a storm draining her reserves. It couldn't last. She directed it towards the tangled, steaming labyrinth of the lower districts, the Narrows. It dissolved into a shower of inky rain just as her boots hit the grimy rooftop of a tenement building, the impact jarring her to the bone. She stumbled, skidding on wet tiles, and collapsed behind a forest of rusting ventilation units. For a moment, she just lay there, chest heaving, rain plastering her hair to her face. She had survived, then. The domain core pulsed. The beat was stronger now, a deep thrum that resonated not just in her hand, but in her very bones. With the pulse came a feeling, a chilling certainty that prickled the back of her neck. The sensation of being watched. She could feel him, the gray man. His cold, relentless focus was a tangible thing, a psychic pressure aimed directly at her. The core wasn't just impact, it was a beacon. By bonding with her, it had painted a target on her soul. "Damn you, collector," she whispered, the words lost in the downpour. This was why he'd lied. He hadn't just sent her to steal an object. He'd sent her to become bait. Scrambling to her feet, she plunged into the neon-soaked chaos of the Narrows. Down fire escapes slick with grime, through alleys choked with the smell of street food and refuse, she ran. The core pulsed against her ribs, a steady thump-thump that was both a source of strange vitality and a relentless tracker. He knows where I am, every second. She ducked into an alley vibrant with graffiti, the brick walls a riotous mural of color and rebellion. A massive, stylized dragon coiled up one wall, its scales a rainbow of spray paint. An idea, born of desperation, sparked in her mind. She couldn't outrun him, not with this glowing stone telling him her every move. So she would have to fight her way. Pressing her palm flat against the painted dragon's eye, she closed her own. She didn't use a sketchbook, instead channeling her power directly into the existing art. "Wake up!" The wall groaned. The spray-painted colors shimmered, swirling like oil on water. The dragon's massive eye swiveled, its painted gaze locking onto the alley's entrance just as the gray man stepped into view. He moved with an unnerving economy of motion, his gray coat shedding rain, his gaze fixed on her. He saw the shifting mural, and his expression didn't change. With a roar of grinding brick and tearing paint, the dragon's head peeled away from the wall. It wasn't solid like her griffin, but a twi-dimensional phantom of pure color. It lunged, spewing a torrent of spectral fire, a wave of searing, vibrant chaos. Silas raised his gloved hand, but the fire wasn't a physical thing to be decayed. It washed over him, a disorienting blast of clashing hues and screaming light. It wouldn't harm him, but it blinded him. Alara used the moment to sprint deeper into the maze. She burst out into a crowded market square. Maglev stalls hawked everything from Sin's noodles to black market cybernetics. The crowd was a living river, a perfect place to disappear. But the chorus pulse was a constant reminder that hiding was useless. She could feel him closing in again, his focus cutting through the noise and confusion. He was faster than she expected. Weaving through the throng, she grabbed a handful of colored chalk from a vendor's cart, tossing a few glimmering credits in her wake. She needed a bigger obstruction. As she ran, she dragged the chalk across the wet pavement, a messy, frantic sketch of a stampeding herd of wild boar. The moment she lifted the chalk, the drawing flared with pale, ethereal light. Ghostly boars, translucent and shimmering, charged through the market square. They passed harmlessly through people and stalls, but the panic they caused was real. People screamed and scattered, creating a wave of human chaos that crashed into her pursuer's path. In the confusion, she felt a brief sharp sting of awareness from someone else in the crowd. A woman with circuits tattooed on her temples met Elara's eyes for a fleeting second. The woman's gaze flickered from Elara's face to the pulsing core hidden under her jacket, and her expression morphed from curiosity to pure, undiluted fear. She backed away, melting back into the crowd. Alara wasn't the only one who could sense this world hidden beneath the surface, and they were all afraid of what she now carried. Or perhaps they were afraid of the man who hunted it. The thought was cut short as a wave of decay washed over her chalker stampede. From the edge of the square, Silas stood, his ungloved hand now resting on a metal lamppost. The metal around his pale fingers grayed and crumbled into dust. The spectral boars dissolved into nothingness. He had cut off the source of her power by destroying her medium. The pavement she'd drawn on, he was learning. He was no longer just following. He was hurting her. She found herself funneled into a narrower street, then a dead-end alley. Rainwater gushed from a broken pipe, a waterfall of rust-colored water. Brick walls, slick and insurmountable, boxed her in on three sides. At the entrance to the alley stood Silas, a silhouette against the market's distant glow. He was done chasing. "Your art is clever," he stated, his voice calm amidst the storm, "but it is fleeting, disorderly. What I bring is permanent, an end to chaos." Alara's heart hammered against the core. She was exhausted, the rapid-fire creations draining her stamina, leaving a phantom ache behind her eyes. One last gamble. The gushing pipe was her canvas now. The cascade of rusty water was her paint. She thrust her hands into the torrent, ignoring the icy shock. She didn't draw an object. She envisioned a scene, a memory made real. She imagined a flock of 100 ink-black crows taking flight all at once. She poured the last of her accessible power into the water. The waterfall exploded, not with force but with life. 100 crows, formed of rusty water and shadow, burst from the stream. They weren't spectral. They were solid, wet, and screaming. They swarmed Silas, a chaotic vortex of flapping wings and sharp, phantom beaks. He grunted, swatting at them. His pale hand disintegrated any bird it touched, turning it back into a splash of dirty water, but there were too many. They were a physical, frantic barrier. Alara didn't wait to see the outcome. She saw a small, grimes-covered maintenance grate on the floor of the alley. With a final, desperate burst of strength, she tore it open and dropped into the sewers below, plunging into the stinking darkness of Viridia's underbelly. She landed in ankle-deep water, the sounds of the storm and her chaotic art muffled above. The domain core still pulsed, a cold fire in her chest, but the immediate sharp sensation of Silas's focus had lessened. The distance and the thick layers of city between them had finally given her a moment's peace. She was alone, hunted, exhausted, and carrying a magical dax that was slowly, irrevocably tying itself to her very being. The collector had played her, using her as a disposable tool to agitate a monster. Going back to him for safety was no longer an option. Going back to him for answers, however, that was another story entirely. He owed her the truth, and Alara Vance was very good at collecting debts.